Nellie Bly, the article that closed it all.
By Macy Klima,
Joy Hatter,
Georgia Curtis,
and Chloe O'Patry.
Nellie Bly forever changed the medical department by writing a series of articles about the Blackwell's Island Asylum that exposed its harrowing conditions. Nellie Bly, also known as Elizabeth Jane Cochran, grew up in Cochran Mills, Pennsylvania. Nellie was born May 5, 1864. She lived with her dad, Michael Cochran, and her mom, Mary Jane Cochran. They had 5 kids. The third one was Nellie. Nellie's dad died in 1870. Nellie was only 6. His death left her and her family in debt. To support her now single mother, she enrolled at the Indiana Normal School, a small college in Indiana, where she studied to become a teacher. But not long after beginning her courses there, financial constraints forced Nellie to give up her hopes for a higher education. After leaving the school, she moved with her mother to the nearby city of Pittsburgh, where together they ran a boarding school. Nellie's future started to look better at the age of 18, when she submitted a racy response to a piece that had been published in the Pittsburgh Dispatch. The writer of this piece, Erasmus Wilson, claimed that women were best to stay at home, but it did not take long for Nellie to build up her anger about this piece. Nellie's letter grabbed attention of the editor of the Pittsburgh Dispatch, George Madden, who in turn offered Nellie a position as a reporter for the Pittsburgh Dispatch at a rate of $5 per week, now taking on the pen name Nellie Bly.
Nellie had a special style as a writer. For most of her articles, she would go undercover to experience what she was writing about, instead of just theorizing about it. In her articles, she would mainly cover social issues. Her work would inspire people for a long period of time. Then public pressure stirred up, and the publishers bowed under the pressure and would only let Nellie write in the woman's page. Nellie was infuriated with this decision and traveled to Mexico to persuade her bosses to make her a foreign correspondent. After Nellie came back from Mexico, she moved to New York and got a job at the New York World, working for editor John Cockrell and publisher John Pulitzer. Nellie's career was then restarted at the New York World. Joseph and John were pleased with her work, but not completely satisfied. Nellie Bly introduced them to her special style of writing, undercover investigation. She then proposed to write the article that would make her famous, 10 Days in a Madhouse. She had proposed to go into the Blackwell's Island Insane Asylum undercover as a mentally ill woman. John and Joseph were very skeptical about Nellie's proposal and were very reluctant about Nellie. Nellie was very persistent and convinced them of her plan. Nellie's plan was to go to a woman's home and convince them of her insanity. Then she planned to be taken to the asylum and tested by the doctors and fool them. She would then explore the asylum and witness its conditions. After that, she planned to convince the doctors she was not insane and be released to write articles about her experience. Things did not go exactly as planned.
After changing her name to Nellie Brown, an immigrant from Cuba, she went to the temporary home for women to convince them she was insane. She pretended to hear voices in her head, and the owner of the home caught her talking to herself and sent her to the Bellevue Hospital, where the doctors declared her mentally insane. She was then immediately sent to Blackwell's Island Asylum. She was horrified by the conditions of the asylum. When she explored it, she saw the inmates forced into cramped cells with rats dead and alive inside, guards denying patients food and water, and physical abuse by doctors. After gathering all the evidence she needed at the asylum, she told the doctor she was not insane. But since they regarded her as insane, the request to be released just made them find her more insane, and she was denied release. The longer she was there, the more she got to know the patients, and was stunned to come to realization that most of the people were just about as sane as she was. She also encountered many other appalling conditions. But she had begun to lose her wits, and so had many other fellow friends. The conditions were enough to make a person insane. She sent a letter of request to be released, as a last hope, to Joseph Pulitzer and John Cockrell, the editor and publisher of New York World. She finally escaped when a lawyer came to her rescue and told the doctors that she was a journalist. They were outraged, but released her anyway. After her release, Bly knew that she had to do something about this ghastly place and put a stop to its injustice. She wrote a series of articles to uncover the truth about the asylum and exchange her thoughts with the world. Her articles were an immediate hit, and actions were taken to close the asylum immediately.
Her career had reached new heights, and she greatly impressed Pulitzer and Cockrell with her articles. Nellie exposed many of the horrifying experiences she had at the asylum in her articles. She kept a journal to collect evidence. One of the experiences she recalled was when they gave her a bath in freezing cold water, and she said, "This must be what it's like to drown. And at that time, I probably looked like I really was insane." Nellie also exposed how horrible the nurses were to the patients. Nellie said it seemed to amuse them, and it was like a game they played. How long would it take us to make this one insane? Nellie later learned that some of the women in the asylum were put in there just because they were poor, and that the people were just about as sane as she was. They were just mentally ill, and that the people in there did not have much regard for the mentally ill. They just classified them as mentally insane. Nellie helps all mentally ill people, insane or not, gain respect and proper treatment all over the country. After Nellie's article, not only was the Blackwell's Island Asylum shut down, but also so were many other asylums all over the country after Nellie's articles were released. Nellie went on to write many other articles and became a regular for the New York World. With such articles as Around the World in 72 Days, Nellie reached amazing new heights. Nellie has forever changed the mental health department with her articles, exposing the truth of how mentally ill were really treated.
Nellie Bly has truly left her mark on the world.